morning, good evening, good day, good luck, good Lord. Here we are again at yet another tipping point where things could not feel more urgent, more dangerous, more crucial. I'm Gregory Maguire, author of Wicked, the novel on which the musical and the films are based. And in the musical, there is a number sung by the Wizard, which has a little tiny lyric embedded in it that really is at the heart of our conundrum today, and really of the story as well. The Wizard of Oz, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, sings, "There are precious few at ease with moral ambiguities, so we act as though they don't exist." I've always found that to be the core of our problem in an election season, that we want to limit everything into categories of black and white and right and wrong, that we try to see things in as simplistic a way so that we can make the best choice. In most elections, that's a hard sandwich to slice. In this one, I'm afraid we have just enough experience with the characters who are afforded us to consider to know exactly what we should do. I do hope that in the interest of defying gravity and restoring sanity, that when election day comes, you vote for Kamala Harris and for Tim Walz. We don't need the Wizard back in the palace again.
Hi, I'm Linda Addison, author of How to Recognize the Demon Has Become Your Friend. I want to help scare up the vote because our right to choose leadership has not always been available to everyone. Your vote matters. Register and vote.
Hi, I'm Ellen Datlow, an editor of short horror fiction. I'm often asked in interviews what scares me. I usually respond that fiction doesn't scare me at all. It's real life that scares me, especially the idea of Donald Trump weaseling his way back into the White House. He scares me, and everyone associated with him scares me. He is an anti-American, treasonous, fascist, and unfit to run our country. So please, please get out the vote, and let's make sure that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win this election. And don't forget to vote blue the hold down ballot as well. Thank you.
And horns. Hi, I'm Joe Hill, author of many family favorites like The Black Phone and Horns, and I want you all to know that's not a sex swing in the background. It's a pull-up bar that I've only used 4 times, and now it just lives in my office. But enough about that. On October 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be joining Scare Up the Vote to hang out with some of the coolest people in the horror business, all to raise a little gelt and a lot of consciousness about the importance of the upcoming election. Before I was a full-time horror writer, I was a full-time horror fan. I used to hang the gruesome, gory centerfolds from Fangoria magazine on my bedroom wall, and I also held on to my virginity for an impressive period of time. On Tuesday night, we are going to talk horror. I've already made my list of the 3 horror films I'm most excited to see. I can hardly wait for Robert Eggers to drop a new vision of Nosferatu on us. The thought of a sequel to Smile puts a grin on my face. And I'm not clowning around when I say I'm psyched for the next Terrifier. You want to know about 3 horror films I definitely don't want to see? I don't want to see Donald Trump delivering a victory speech on November 5th because he's weird and nasty and talks gibberish. He stokes rage in his supporters and provokes it in everyone else. And all that hostility isn't going to go away until he does. I don't want to see Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito replaced on the Supreme Court by 2 justices who are half their age but just as partisan and just as determined to police women's reproductive rights. And I don't want to see Trump in charge when the next crisis hits and he goes full cuckoo like he did in his last term. I'm not just talking about COVID when he was telling people to give themselves bleach enemas. The Guardian reports that Donald didn't want to give emergency aid to California when they were in desperate straits because they didn't vote for him. Oklahoma probably isn't going to vote for Harris, but if they get ravaged by a storm, a Harris administration won't hesitate to do the right thing for them. Look, I'd rather think about the next season of Stranger Things, but until this election is over, we have some real-life scary stuff to deal with, and we'll do that best together. See you on Tuesday.
Hello. Hello, horror family. Welcome to Scare Up the Vote. My name is Tananarive Due. I am the author of The Reformatory, The Wishing Pool and Other Stories, The Good House, and I'm the chair of the historic Scare Up the Vote event to celebrate our love for horror and our horror icons, but also to help raise money, funds, get the troops inspired to volunteer, and get out the vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. My late mother, Patricia Stevens Due, was a civil rights activist and also the first horror fan in my life. She wore dark glasses most of her life after being tear gassed at a nonviolent protest at Florida A&M University in 1960 when she was only 20 years old. And I mean, she wore them the rest of her life. When I said Black history is Black horror in the documentary Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror, I was thinking about Mom's ordeal growing up under Jim Crow and the police violence she suffered as an activist. Mom's memory really inspired me to see if we could get this Scare Up the Vote thing going with a great committee so my beloved horror community could organize to celebrate the genre we love so much while we work to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Protest will be a part of this nation's future as we demand peace, as we demand civil rights, and no one will be safe to protest if Kamala Harris does not win. Make no mistake, we would continue to see civil rights and personal freedoms lost under MAGA rule. We cannot let that happen. I really want to thank my incredible committee, the core committee that got this thing rolling: Cynthia Pelayo, Christopher Golden, Linda D. Addison, Maxwell I. Gold, on graphics, Jesse Hayes, our tech team, headed by Rob Olson, Greg Green, and Karama Horn. Bookstore partners that helped me from the very beginning with either advice or helping to publicize this were SistaSci-Fi.com in Oakland and Books in Miami. The Scare Up the Vote lineup is amazing, from legends like Stephen King, who's already waiting backstage, to newcomers like Aaron E. Adams, who wrote Jackal. Creators from literature, film, and TV are all coming together tonight. And don't worry, horror fans, we're also going to have fun. We're not just going to talk politics. So now I'd like to bring on my co-host for this first segment, Christopher Golden, who is a New York Times bestselling novelist, acclaimed writer of short stories, comic books, video games, and screenplays. Founder of the Merrimack Valley Halloween Book Festival and author of the supernatural horror novel, The House of Last Resort. Take it away, Chris.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tananarive. I can't even believe we're doing this. I'm so excited about it. And most importantly, I think that everybody needs to know that this is the brainchild of Tananarive Due. She is the engine driving this whole thing. And we wouldn't be here without her. And I think we're all so grateful for her efforts, and we should be. You'll hear from me later a little bit. For now, I want to remind you to donate to our dedicated donation link or the QRC code that we have. We are obviously trying to raise money for the Harris Walz campaign tonight. But beyond that, we're also just trying to get out the vote. Check to make sure you're registered by searching on vote.org. In many states, it's not too late to register if you find you're not. Look, it boggles my mind to think about all the ways in which electing Kamala Harris is an absolute necessity, and every one of them is alarming enough to be a top priority. The rights of women to control their own bodies, the right of every person to be treated equally in our society and under our laws, regardless of who we are, what we look like, how we identify, or what we believe. The bullets of mass shooters don't discriminate between your children and their children. The hurricanes and tornadoes and wildfires and floods and the brutal heat, climate change is here right now. And it's killing more people with every passing month. And it doesn't discriminate based on who you are. Like stage magicians, they point over there with one hand to distract you from what they're doing with the other. We can't even begin to deal with the terrifying issues facing this country if we vote for liars who tell us those issues don't even exist. So don't let them distract you. Don't let them fool you into thinking your problems come from people whose daily lives and decisions have zero impact on you. Most of us have a little bit of power, that one vote that democracy gives us, and the people who don't care about gunmen killing your children or floods and hurricanes destroying your homes, they don't even want you to have that much power. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to protect your power, your vote. And for them to do that, you need to vote for them on November 5th. And I was going to save that for later, but I just got carried away because, again, my heart is full with tonight. Without further ado, my friends, Stephen Graham Jones is the New York Times bestselling author of some 30 novels, short story collections, novellas, and comic books, including his latest, I Was a Teenage Slasher. And we're going to bring Stephen on right now. Hey, Stephen.
Hello. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tananarive. Thank you, everyone. Yes, I am Stephen Graham Jones. You might know me from this book about a final girl called Jade Daniels. You may know me from a werewolf book. You may know me from my efforts to kill Christopher Columbus. Maybe you know me through some elk. Maybe you know me from this vampire novel coming up. Or maybe you know me because I've always got these kind of Halloween toys around. Could be you work at urgent care and I look a little more familiar than you really think I should. But that all really seems quite distant right now in this especially spooky season before a big important election. No, we can't fix everything in a day, a week, even a year, but we can start things happening. If we all push together, we can get that big ball rolling. We can try to get the right person in office. I mean, by getting out and voting like it matters, because it does. The way I see it, we have the chance to vote for a candidate actually invested in policy to help stop school shootings. We have the chance to vote for a candidate who believes that women should be in charge of their own bodies. Wild, right? We have the chance to get someone in the White House a little girl can look up to and see herself in. That's when a better future becomes possible. That's a world I want to live in. What I want to do this election is vote for someone I can believe in. Jay Daniels might be my final girl, but Kamala Harris is my president. Thank you. We'll go back to the hosts.
Okay. Am I? This is strange. Okay. I don't know what's going on. For some reason, we can't hear Tananarive. Hopefully, the tech team is going to take care of that because the last thing we want is to have the boss silenced. So I'm sticking with it. Our next guest is an extraordinary author. We will hear from him right now. Johnny Compton. Sorry about the mix-up.
That's all right. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is an honor. I can't believe I'm actually getting to share this space with so many incredible authors, so many well-meaning, important people putting together something this important. I am the author of The Spite House, which was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award for superior achievement in a debut novel last year. And then my most recent book, Devils Kill Devils, has just released a few weeks ago now. And I've been trying to enjoy that as well as I can because I'm going on a tour and I'm having some fun doing that. But in the back of my mind this entire time, I've been also focusing so heavily on what I can do and where I can split some time and contribute in any way possible to not only the Harris Walz campaign, but so many other campaigns down ballot. And so one thing, just sharing about myself in terms of my relationship to the horror genre and how important it's been for me for my entire life. I feel like it's been a huge part of my identity. I'm a huge horror reader, horror fan, horror watcher. I've got my spooky painting on the wall back here, which is one of the few things I indulged in when I first actually signed a book contract. And it's always been this kind of outlet for me and this escape for me from when I was a kid and suffering with asthma and almost dying on occasion and having my lung actually collapse in a classroom at one point. And right up until the present day, whenever I need to escape from some of the horrors of reality, I feel like one of the beautiful things about the horror genre, and with Halloween coming up, is that you get a place to channel and funnel that fear. And so even as I was on the road recently, I'm always looking to pick up a variety of books. I pick up all kind of novels and such from our wonderful authors here, but I also pick up stuff like this, which I think is going to be out of focus. There we go. A little bit better. But it's a small book of haunts in the Northwest because I was in Seattle for the first time. And I encourage people all the time to seek your solace in the midst of also trying to focus on what's important. And sometimes the solace we have comes from horror, that wonderful genre. And sometimes I'll read a ghost story to put me to sleep. Sometimes I'll watch John Carpenter's The Fog to put me to sleep. Whenever I need some rest and some peace. Right now I need a lot of it because I am concerned about the obviously abysmal potential direction our country would head, and our country might not even really survive another Donald Trump term of office. It's unfathomable to think of. But beyond even that, and we want to make sure obviously that Kamala and Tim are in office and not JD and Donald. But I want to make sure that people think about what you're going to be doing down ballot. If you haven't thought about that yet, this again, probably a little bit out of focus, but this is a sample ballot. So check and see within your county, your area, whatever municipality you may have, check and see if you can get a sample ballot, see what the names are down ballot, what their positions are. Obviously, we don't want to just put Kamala in a position where she doesn't have the senatorial congressional support necessary to actually enact all of these things that Chris mentioned and that Stephen just mentioned that are so important to be able to fulfill her mission. She's going to need support from these different branches of government. Otherwise, she ends up getting sabotaged, as we've seen other progressive presidents in the past be sabotaged when it's their opportunities to try to put the proper judges in place, when it's their opportunity to try to enact laws and make changes. You need the totality of it. It doesn't just begin and end with just the presidency. So make sure that we're paying attention to all of that. Make sure you're voting for the senators, right down to your local city council, because once this is all over, you're going to go right back to, once we get Kamala in office, we're also going to still be fighting to make sure that local school boards are not trying to sabotage our children's education. We want to make sure that we have the right people in place for future elections. So electoral boards, all of these different things, they all matter. So I want to just encourage people with my time here. Again, we all know who we're here for and who we can donate to and support, but you can also keep going down the ballot. And if you have if you're in an area where you can vote straight ticket, make sure that you're paying attention to who it is that's going to be part of that ticket. If you're intending to vote straight ticket, if you're like me and you're in Texas, and I think we cannot actually vote straight ticket anymore, then that's why I have my preliminary ballot that I found on the county website pre-printed, and I can take that in and I can use that to make sure I'm voting for the right name for the right place, because it might not be, when the actual live ballot is there, they might not actually be readily identified as the individual, the association, the party that I would be picking. So I want to make sure that I have the right names and the right research already done beforehand. So I hope that everybody has an opportunity to do that. I hope you can enjoy your Halloween with the election looming as well as you can. I hope that you continue to read and support horror, and I hope that you will take action today in whatever way you can to support this wonderful cause. And I think that's my time.
Thank you so much, Johnny. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to Johnny, because in this, I had utter panic when you were silent there, and I was so glad that I was able to throw to him. I also love the points he made about down ballot. We're just so focused on the national election, and we need to make sure, as he said, that Kamala has the support that she needs once she gets into office. So, but you're back now.
I am back. And also, I want to mention, I don't want to make it too competitive, but there are other affinity calls that have happened for other groups that raised a whole lot of money for Kamala Harris. And this is not just about money. It's also about volunteering at go.kamalaharris.com, where you can sign up to write letters, you can knock on doors, you can do phone banking. But you see that figure of the dinosaur up there in the right corner, that's your code, or you can look at our fundraising link. We'd like to raise some money. We want to be able to say that horror stood up and really helped put Kamala Harris in the White House with the funds at the last stretch. So don't forget about, even if you've given already $10, $20, $50, let's do it for Kamala Harris.
$1 million. $5.
Oh my God, $1 million.
I just
$1 million would be great.
I want to say that I know we shouldn't waste time, but I just want to say that for those of you who heard Tananarive say that she doesn't like to be competitive, that's a lie. All right. Well, next up, we have David Johnson McGoldrick. He's a film and television screenwriter and producer known for his horror and fantasy works, including the film Orphan, as well as 2 films in the Conjuring series, and I think some episodes of The Walking Dead. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for being here and for volunteering to speak tonight.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to join you guys. As he said, my name is David Johnson McGoldrick. I'm a writer of horror films, TV shows, and I write horror because I love it. I have my Maximum Overdrive shirt on tonight. But one of my favorite horror movies of the past few years that I want to talk about tonight is the original Speak No Evil Danish version from 2022. If you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, I'm about to spoil it, but also shame on you for not having seen it. One of the criticisms I hear about this movie is, why don't they leave? Throughout this film, it becomes increasingly obvious that these people in the house there and their hosts are insane. But the heroes just keep ignoring the evidence of their own eyes. And by the time they do finally realize the jeopardy they are in, it's too late. Now, I know a lot of people who've seen that movie and they have a big problem with that aspect of it. But I think that's the most powerful thing about it, and what makes that film so scary, because It is how real people behave. And it is a perfect allegory for where we are right now. Donald Trump has said we can reduce crime by increasing police violence. He's threatened to use the military on domestic soil. He has told everyone there's no secret he will authorize mass encampments for undocumented immigrants. He has literally said there'll be bloodshed if he loses. He wanted to shoot protesters when he was president the first time. He has cozied up to and wants to ally us with the most vicious dictators in the world. Dozens of people from his own administration have warned us that he is unfit to lead. His own top general has said he is a fascist through and through, but still, even after we watched January 6th unfold on our television screens, we have seen with our own eyes what he is capable of. Just 2 days ago, in a New York Times poll of likely voters, 41% of people agreed that people who are offended by Donald Trump take his words too seriously. Guys, we are trapped in a house with crazy people, and it is time to stop ignoring the evidence of our own eyes and start waking up to the very serious trouble we are in. Now, Stephen King is with us tonight, and if there is one thing that I have learned from a lifetime of reading his books, is that when a monster comes to prey on the weak and empower itself, whether it is a clown or a demon or a vampire or freaking intergalactic shit weasels, it takes a community of heroes to defeat them. And Donald Trump is the biggest shit weasel of them all on this planet or any other. So if you can, donate to the link, give money, give your time, join a phone bank, write letters. If you can't do any of that, just use your power and vote. If you have a disability, you can stay in your car and vote curbside. Find out how you can vote if you are unhoused and don't have an address. If you are in line when the polling closes on election day, do not get out of line. You can still vote. If you are turned away at your polling place, you may still be able to submit a provisional ballot. Talk to your friends. Make sure they are all voting. Make a plan to vote together, vote by mail, vote early, whatever you do. Don't just show up and assume everything is going to be fine, because in many parts of this country, Republicans are making it harder to vote because they fear your power. Don't let them take it away. We are the community of heroes, and we don't let the shit weasels win. Now back to Scare Team.
No shit weasels. I love it. We have a new slogan. Okay, thank you so much for that. I love how you kept it horror at the beginning and then you kept it real with the politics at the end. Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Clay McLeod Chapman, a novelist, comic book and podcast writer, and celebrated storyteller. And his most recent novel, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, comes out soon. And I know you got a blurb from Jordan Peele. I saw that. Welcome, Clay.
Hey, everybody. My name is Clay McLeod Chapman, and I want to be your next president. When you're on the road, as much as I have been these last few months, I mean, you get to meet a whole lot of different people. Decent, God-fearing American people. You get to hear all kinds of stories. Stories of hard work, big dreams. You get to hear time and time again what makes our nation so great. But no matter how many folks I chat with, no matter where I am, whether it's Arkansas or Georgia, New York or Nevada, I've been hearing this familiar refrain of people feeling pushed around by our president, of folks feeling hogtied by their own government, folks like Harold Walsh from Ashland, Ohio. Now, I was lucky enough to meet Harold when we were rolling through Dayton a few months back, and well, we got to talking about his pig farm. How his family is in a bad way, all because of the government subsidies they depend on getting cut in half. How he was afraid his family wasn't going to make ends meet this year. Now, a good national economy depends on a good farm economy. I know that. Congress should know that. Poor Harold here knows that better than any fat cat in Washington. But what choice has he got, huh? Now that more than half of his aid has been cut right down the middle, what options does his wife, Suzanne, have now that she can't afford new kids for their 3 little kids? Their youngest, Johnny, Oh, he still has to wear the same pair of dusty sneakers he's worn for well over a year now, even though they got enough holes in the soles to make me think they've been chewed on. Now, Harold, he heard that I was going to be in Ohio, so what does he do? He takes off from work. Even though he couldn't afford to lose the man hours, he decides to take little Johnny Boy with him. The two hop in their truck and they drive nearly 3 hours all the way to Dayton just to hear me talk, to share their hardships with me, to let me know what their government was giving their family and what I was going to do differently about it if I was elected. How are you going to be any different than the last president I voted for? He asked me point blank. How can I trust you? Well, you want to know what I told Harold? I took hold of that man by the shoulders and I looked him right in the eye and I said, Harold, just give me Johnny. Just hand your son over to me. He's a fine-looking boy, a healthy boy. I'll treat him like he was my own. That's a promise. See? That is already one mouth less to feed. You are already on your way to getting back on your feet. Now, Harold, he looked at me funny at first. I mean, he was a proud man. I could see that plain as day. A hard-working man, too prideful to accept a handout he didn't earn, fair and square. But Harold, well, that man handed over his youngest son just as Abraham was ready to lay down Isaac. And I'll tell you one more thing right here now. Little Johnny's never been happier, huh? We have been feeding him this combination of corn and other grains for the last couple months. That boy's fattening up quite nicely. He is 20 pounds heavier in the haunches than when we first got him. We're going to give him another month to gain a few more pounds, get those loins nice and plump. Then he'll be ready. Harold Walsh, he believes in America, what it once was, what it can be again. And to make our nation great, everybody's got to make sacrifices, ancient sacrifices. That day in Dayton after our rally, well, Harold drove all the way back home to his farm. One child less, yes, but with a guarantee directly from me. Your family shall never go hungry again, Harold. You have made the ultimate donation to our campaign, and the old ones will look kindly upon your sacrifice. It's a new dawn, people. What folks watching at home have got to ask themselves is, how much am I willing to give to make our nation great once again? Well, I give little Johnny Boy up until the national convention before we string him up, open up his belly, let him bleed out a little bit. I will read his entrails like they were tea leaves. See my destiny spread out before me. His intestines will foretell my future. That boy is going to lead me all the way to the White House. These guys, don't forget to vote. November. Kamala, thank you guys. Have a good night. Scare up the vote.
Well, listen, when we asked Clay, we knew what we were going to get, which is something you never expect. Wow, listen, this is amazing. Thank you all so much. It's going amazing so far. I just want to remind everybody, please check out the QRC code and or the donation link. And don't forget to check vote.org to make sure you're registered. Up next, I'm so excited that she's here. Akela Cooper is a film and television screenwriter and producer known for her work in the horror genre, including the films Megan, Malignant, and the upcoming Megan 2.0. Akela, I'm so excited for that, and so excited that you're here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This is incredible. Like, I will just say, I will not be reading a script for my time. I just want to say, what is up to all of the horror fans out there? Thank you so much for being a part of Scare Up the Vote. Yes, I am Akela Cooper, writer of hopefully some of your favorite horror films like Malignant and Megan, and I am so excited to be a part of this. Like, if you follow me on social media, you know I'm very open and very vocal about my politics. Yesterday, I was doing postcards to voters for various Democratic races across the country, and today I'm here, and I want to thank all of you and my horror heroes for taking the time to be here and to help raise money for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. May we help them get over the finish line, and please, please, please donate what you can. I would love to talk to you about some of the various things I'm doing, but I have signed a lot of NDAs. And all I can really say right now is that Megan 2.0 has wrapped filming, and very, very excited about that, and very excited for you all to see it next summer. I have been told there's an announcement about something I am doing coming later on this week that you should keep an eye out for, but I can't say anything about that, but super excited about that as well. As you can probably see from my background and the various interviews I've done, you know I've been a horror fan inappropriately since I was a little kid. I love the thrill of a film scaring you, and I'm happy to scare audiences now. But I'll be even happier when the terror is just on the screen and not in my fucking politics. And that's why I think it's so important to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. They are the only candidates who are going to bring sanity back to politics and pull us all out of this waking nightmare we've been in. I will take any horror movie villain over Donald Trump. Give me Freddy, give me Jason, give me Michael. Hands down, Donald Trump is the fucking worst. So I'm going to wrap this up really quickly, and I'll just say every horror movie needs a strong, badass final girl to take down the monster, and our final girl is going to be Kamala Harris. So now back to the scare team.
Woo! So exciting. Oh my gosh. Everyone is bringing the fire, bringing the horror, bringing the message, and our next guest will be no exception. Don Mancini is a writer, producer, and director best known for, being the godfather of Chucky, the creator of Chucky. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Scare Up the Vote.
Thank you so much for having me, Tananarive, and hello to all horror fans out there, and hopefully Kamala fans, and hopefully some people maybe who are still on the fence, although as incomprehensible as that may seem to contemplate, I hear they're out there. Maybe we can change some minds today. Anyway, again, my name is Don Mancini. I'm a gay man, and I'm the creator of the Chucky franchise, the queerest horror franchise in Hollywood, and proudly so. For decades now, I've been hearing from young queer horror fans, gays, lesbians, trans people, non-binary people, bi people, and people who just defy all these labels, the proud weirdos and so-called outsiders, my people. These young people reach out to tell me how much it's meant to them to see themselves represented in these mainstream stories on movie screens and TV screens and little itty bitty iPhone screens all across the country and around the world. And it's been the honor of my life to be able to help make that happen. These are my people, and we're in danger. The queer community are among the most vulnerable populations in our country. The last year has seen an unprecedented amount of Republican-driven legislation designed to discriminate against queer and especially trans citizens, more than double the amount of such legislation last year. They're talking, for example, about banning certain books by authors who just because they're queer. We've also seen a rise in hostile rhetoric from the right aimed at queer people. In the wake of all of this, there's consequently been a very scary rise in hate crimes against the queer community. In fact, more than 1 in 5 hate crimes now stem from what they call anti-queer bias. And the result is that the Human Rights Campaign has declared a national state of emergency for queer people for the first time in its 40-year history. And again, trans folks, especially women of color, are statistically the most at risk. So there isn't any question as to which candidate in this race is going to do more to protect my people, as well as the victims of racial hate crimes and religion-based hate crimes. It's Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Both have long demonstrated their bona fides when it comes to supporting the gays. Kamala was endorsing and even officiated a same-sex wedding 20 years ago as a young DA in San Francisco. Tim Walz, as a teacher 25 years ago, helped create his school's first gay-straight student alliance. And if elected, Harris and Walz have promised to pass the Equality Act, which will legally prohibit discrimination in housing and healthcare based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Unlike their opponents on the right, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are people of real substance. So on election day, let's all take the substance and create a better version of ourselves as a nation. And if we just follow the rules and remember that we are one, all of us in this country, connected and equal, we won't end up like poor Elizabeth Sparkle. Instead, we can help build a brighter future for all of us, even us weirdos and outsiders. Thank you. Please give what you can back to the Scare team.
Hi there, everyone. So happy to be here. What a joy and pleasure with all my folks, my writers and readers and everybody else. So, I wanted to say that for me, the most important thing that I come to is how I feel like we've lost democracy on so many levels, and the fight for women has gone backwards. And I just feel very not happy about that. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I talk about the difference between fear and love, or fear and hope. And right now, there's so much fear in the air over everything. And the fear is what women are feeling and what marginalized area groups are feeling. It's just, I want to see this country come back to what it can be and what the promise of it can be. So that's why I'm so over the moon to be here with you. And this is going to be a lot of fun, guys, even though we want you to vote. We want you to go ahead and, register and even do some volunteer work if you can, because every single vote matters. And a lot has been done in order to allow us to vote. And we don't want to lose that too. So that's the deal, kids. Okay, so I also want to introduce Cynthia Pelayo, who is my co-host with me. Hey!
You look so beautiful.
As you do.
Thank you so much for everything, Linda. Like, you're an absolute inspiration. So I just first want to start off by saying thank you to everyone for the absolutely wonderful reception that you all have provided the Scare Up the Vote movement. Thank you especially to Tananarive Due for pulling us all together for this very, very, very important and historic cause. Again, my name is Cynthia Pelayo, and today is the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm the first Latina to win a Bram Stoker Award and a 6-time International Latino Book Award winning author, and I am here today to ask you to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Puerto Ricans have been American citizens since the 1918 Jones Act. My parents moved to the mainland from the island. I was born on the island, but they moved to the mainland for a better life. I don't come from a family with generational wealth. My parents were factory workers with a 6th grade education who worked overtime and weekends in order to provide us with a home. And some nights, all we could afford to eat was plain white rice and beans. I was blessed with 2 beautiful children with disabilities. My youngest is nonverbal on the autism spectrum, and he will be in my care for the rest of my life. He receives daily therapy, speech therapy, developmental therapy, physical therapy, and more. He has things that we need to monitor in terms of like neurology and more. And so Americans with disabilities mean a lot to me. And the Americans with Disabilities Act is the right step, and it's a step in the right direction, but we still have so much more work to do. There are over 70 million Americans living in the United States with disabilities, young, old, veterans, and many of these people depend on government programs for medical assistance, financial assistance, and more. And Vice President Harris has a record of helping the most vulnerable Americans. Republican initiatives like Project 2025 would gut many of these programs that Americans with disabilities rely on, from educational programs, housing for people with disabilities, transportation for people with disabilities, reducing funding for veterans with disabilities, and more. We are not going back to a time when people with disabilities were ostracized, hurt, and harmed in this country. Again, we have a very long way to go. And I know, and I have seen Vice President Harris and Governor Walz work to protect these most vulnerable Americans. And they're going to strengthen our health care benefits, our Social Security benefits, Medicare, and they're going to protect our most vulnerable Americans, our Americans with disabilities. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be here for a while. I hope you stick around. Please donate. And I am very, very excited to introduce our next guest, Bryan Fuller. Bryan Fuller. Hi, Bryan.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bryan Fuller is a celebrated writer and producer. He is best known for creating the television series Hannibal. Thank you so much for being here, Bryan.
Thanks, Cynthia. And thanks all the horror fans for tuning in for Scare Up the Vote. You might notice, it's that side. There's a little QR code. There we go. Right over little Danny Torrance's face that you should take a picture of so you can access information on how to contribute to Scare Up the Vote and to support Harris and Walz. First thing I would like to say is a little message to former President Donald Trump, and that is, keep my murder husband's name out of your motherfucking mouth. We have Donald Trump saying a lot about Hannibal Lecter, talking about how he's like this ultimate evil guy. Hannibal Lecter is an angel on earth compared to the I don't even want to give Trump the credit for calling him the devil, because I have a lot of respect for devils and devilry. He's just trash. And I'm sorry if that's hard news for anybody to hear, but us in the horror community know scary things when we see them, and we know scary trash. So we need to get behind Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and support them any way we can. I may be a little bit loopy because I just had surgery on my hand and I'm literally hours out of the anesthesia. And I was playing on Joe Hill's, he calls it a pull-up bar, but it's actually a sex rack. So I apologize for any loopiness. I want to share a little story about my origins of as a horror fan. And they really started when I was a young man watching Alien for the first time. All the other kids were going goo goo gaga over Star Wars, which I also went goo goo gaga over. But Alien really was my Star Wars. And so it was a dream for me to work with Sigourney Weaver in a movie that's coming out next year called Dust Bunny. And she is such a phenomenon. And we had a test screening, or not a test screening, a friends and family screening recently. And David Benioff brought his daughters and they said, we really love the woman who looks like Kamala Harris. And they were talking about Sigourney Weaver because she was in a fantastic suit and she had fantastic hair like Kamala Harris. And what it reminded me of is the strength that we have in these female characters and these women leaders in our world who are championing everybody, not just for keeping quarantine codes, not just for saving their cat as cat ladies, but Sigourney Weaver as Ripley is the ultimate cat lady. But what delighted me is that a young generation of teenage girls saw Sigourney Weaver, equated her with Kamala Harris, and knew power when they saw it. And when I saw Kamala Harris, I knew power when I saw it. And a lot of us are attracted to this genre because of the strength of these final girls, as we have all been fans of forever. And one of the things that I want to bring up with, particularly with Kamala Harris, is she is pro-union. And we just got out of a couple of hairy strikes last year that were really traumatic for the industry, that we have been still recouping from, and probably won't finish recouping or recovering for some time. Survive till 2025, they say. But what is amazing about Kamala Harris and the importance of her support of unions is, without unions, especially as writers, as actors, as people in the entertainment industry, as people who would probably do these jobs for free because we are so passionate about them, we need people to protect us. We need people to look out for our best interests, and that is our unions. And Kamala Harris is looking out for unions. She's going to be looking out for the WGA. She's going to be looking out for SAG. And if we are ever in situations, hypothetically, where a studio is not behaving according to basic principles of minimum business agreements for our industry, we need somebody like Kamala Harris to support the unions who are supporting us. And that is a very important reason, amongst a bunch of very important reasons, to vote Harris Walz in the upcoming election. Do it however you can. Convince a friend. Give whatever you can. And if you can't give because the economy is tight right now, do what you can. Have a conversation. Communicate with each other. Talk about the ideas that you're excited about. Stay away from hate and go through the prism of progress, because that's the light that Kamala Harris is shining on all of us. The prism of progress. Let's all step into the light and vote for Harris and Walz. And I can't thank you enough. And once again, Hannibal Lecter would be a better president. And also, Hannibal Lecter knows enough to eat the rude. So he would be dining with delight in this upcoming political season. But the guests at the table would be Harris Walz. They are not on the menu. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's an honor to be in the company of such fantastic horror creators. And thank you, Tananarive Due, for putting all of this together. You are a gem and one of my favorite people. And I was so honored to be asked to join this party. And with that, click above Danny Torrance's head, or take a picture and get your QR code and follow that link to where it leads you. Give if you can, support how you can, and right back to the Scare Up the Vote team.
Oh, thank you so much, Bryan. What a wonderful person you are, coming here all after surgery and everything. That's the way to do it. So the next guest that we have coming up, I have spoke with before. I love his work. This is P. Djeli Clark, is the award-winning author of numerous applauded works, including my fave, the lauded novella Ring Shout. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Linda? Great to be here. Oh, I get to go on now. Great. So, hello, everyone. My name is P. Djeli Clark, and I write stuff. I write across genres, but I also like to dabble in horror. Most notably, as Linda pointed out, my novella Ring Shout, the prequel short story to that novella Night Doctors, and the short story Hide and Seek, which was fortunate enough to be featured in Jordan Peele and John Joseph Adams' Out There Screaming. So I got invited to this wonderful event by the Tananarive Due, which is mind-boggling for me. So, of course, I had to say yes. And I'm delighted that I'm invited to be part of this wonderful horror community and the many writers and creators I've gotten to know and share platforms with over the years. Tananarive kicked this off talking about her mother, who introduced her to horror as well as civil rights. And it struck me that this was also a role played by my own mom. I was born in the US, but sent back to live with my grandparents in Trinidad in the Caribbean, my parents' homeland. And when I came back here around the age of 7 or so, my mother was my guide to all things fantastic and speculative fiction, including horror. She'd grown up watching those old shows like Dark Shadows and introduced me to the creepiest of the old black and white Twilight Zones. We'd sit together with the covers drawn over our heads, watching films like The Omen. And yeah, my mother also introduced me to civic duties and activism. She arrived in the US at the end of the civil rights movement, but she'd followed it back in Trinidad, and it had this impact on her. And she would go to speeches by Angela Davis when she got here and other activists of the time. And so she imbued both myself and my younger sister with this strong sense of activism, as well as this need to keep up with politics, right? And to understand the political events of the day. And when she finally decided to become a US citizen later in life, she took to it with vigor and would volunteer every year with local Black churches to drive elderly folks to the polls, and was even almost elected to be a delegate during the election of Obama. Yeah, but declined on account of she didn't like the spotlight like that. My mother passed away in 2014, so she missed the real life horror story we all endured in the 2016 election. Remember that feeling? Yeah, don't want to feel that again. And the possible horror we're facing in this 2024 election. But I'm here to carry on her struggle and do whatever I can and urge everyone to do what they can to elect President Kamala Harris and Vice President Tim Walz. Every election is important. Everybody says this all the time. And this one may be perhaps the most important of our lifetime that could determine whether democracy as we know it, even an imperfect democracy, survives or we enter into some authoritarian, bizarre world that takes us back to a dark past instead of offering a path forward. So if you can still register where you live, get registered. Have a voting plan so you know where you should vote, if your registration is in order, or if you can register on the day of the election. I think many people have spoken about this. Have a plan so you can vote. And even more important, bring some friends along. The last thing, I hear a lot from people wondering if their vote matters. They wonder if they should vote if the candidate does not align fully with their political issues. And those can be gravely serious issues, even when the candidate agrees with 90% of what you believe in. So beyond being a writer, I'm also an academic historian. And I'm reminded of Frederick Douglass and other abolitionists who had reservations about Abraham Lincoln and the election of 1860, which reminds me so much of this moment. Yet in that election, they understood without hesitation that a victory for any other candidate than Lincoln would be a triumph for the slave powers of the South. And so even in their criticisms, they understood that having someone they could criticize, who they could push, was infinitely better and more strategic to their aims than allowing the powers and forces of slavery and despotism to prevail. So your vote always matters. Every election matters. We are all bound up in this together. And the time to fight is now, if only to assure you can fight tomorrow. So that's it for me. Thank you guys. Please continue listening. Please donate. And I give this back to the wonderful Scare Up the Vote team.
Thank you so much. So our next guest is a wonderful author. He is so passionate. Josh Malerman. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Zena.
Thank you so much for joining.
Okay.
Plus, we have. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor to introduce you. Josh Malerman is an award-winning writer, film producer, singer, songwriter, and the author of the novel Incidents Around the House, which is available now. Take it over, Josh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh. I wrote Bird Box, and I'm Mary Carroll, and Incidents Around the House. I am the kind of writer who trusts the audience. Reader, writer, we're just as smart as each other. It's more fun that way. So if I'm going to talk about an election for a couple minutes, I'm going to employ that same philosophy. We all know the basics. Of all the cognitive dissonances going around, and there are many of them, there's one that haunts me. Is that haunting? Is this haunting music? Well, it's not Joseph Bishara, but it'll do. We have a candidate who claims elections are not real while running in an election. We have a candidate who has convinced people to vote for him in an election that they do not believe is real. Okay, we can disagree on everything, and we should. That's what we do. Every subject, I don't need to list them off. You know what they all are. But there's one thing we have to agree on. One thing that we have to respect is the vote. The vote gets an A major. Did you hear that? Minor and a major. It's brick one in the building. It's the bottom piece in the Jenga tower. So, if we've got one candidate who has spent 4 years, 40 times a day, telling us that our vote isn't real, and you got another one who's encouraging people to vote, who's underscoring the power of voting. I mean, there's not even a discussion to be had. It's the most powerful policy in America is the vote. We have to respect the vote. That's all I need to know. And with that, I bid you adieu, and good night, and good voting, and may I throw my hat and my piano into the ring. Wait, if I'm gonna throw this piano, I need help. Allison, I can't even move this thing across the room on my own. For Harris. And I wish every one of you an amazing night. Back to the Scare team.
Oh my gosh. That was awesome. Hi, Linda Addison back with you from the team. And I'm here to introduce Gabino Iglesias. I'm so sorry. I'm trying again. I'm trying, baby. So anyway, Gabino Iglesias is an award-winning writer, professor, book reviewer, editor, and translator, and author of the acclaimed barrio noir novel House of Bone. House of Bone and Rain.
Got it. Oh, I guess I'm on. Do you ever feel like super glad that you're somewhere, you're happy to be there, and simultaneously you wished it was not a thing that you had to go to? This is that type of event. I'm glad to be here. I am in awe of your amazingness and creativity. I echo everything that everyone has said, and at the same time, I wish we didn't have to be here. And the reason we're here is a horrific possibility in this next elections. So we're here to talk about horror, and I'm going to talk about horror. Horror, I think there are two things that really we get hooked on more than monsters and tension and all of that stuff. The first one is empathy. And I want you to think about this one, all right? Dark narratives, scary narratives don't work if there's no empathy. If you don't feel empathy for those characters, you're bored. You're just going through the motion, all right? So the first big important thing about horror is that it teaches us empathy. All right. And the second one is hope. How do you think the final girl actually works? Because we're hoping that she survives. All right. We put these characters through the ringer. We throw at them a demonic possession and werewolves and vampires and haunted houses and aliens with ray guns. And and we feel for them, so that's empathy, and we hope that they actually make it out, or that at least one of them survives and beats the monster. So these two things make us feel almost like life is worth living. All right, empathy and hope. Now let me ask you this: when you take a look at the two options that we have in this upcoming election, which one makes you feel a little bit closer to empathy? If you cannot answer that question by yourself right now, you've probably been living under a rock. All right. And then, which of these two figures that we must choose between makes you feel even a little bit of hope? Be honest with yourself. All right. If you're looking for empathy, if you're looking for hope, you know the answer is Kamala. I also wanted to talk briefly about my experience in these past 12 days. I'm completely jet lagged. I'm loopy from medicine and I'm stuffed up and sick, but I'm here because showing up matters. For 12 days, I hung out with readers, booksellers, and librarians in France. All of them were worried about us. They asked questions as, as friends. And one of those questions really hit me. One of them, a young man at a library event, asked me if we were aware that the winner of the election would not only run the United States of America, it would probably be the figure at the head of the global economy. And I was talking to high school students, and the fact that high school students understood just how much is at stake in France, and that some of the people that I meet here still don't understand just how much is at stake. It's pretty incredible. So you have this thing right there, here. Do the thing, and please, please, scare up the vote is such a great idea because we're actually asking you to vote, and voting is very crucial at the moment. So think about empathy. Do you feel it for other people? You show that with your vote. And think about hope. Think about the things that you hope the next generation gets. And some of those things we had and then we lost. It's time to get it back. I'll throw it back to the team. Stick around and use the thingy.
Thank you so much, Gabino. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us. Again, you can donate. Our next guest is Erin E. Adams.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Erin E. Adams is a writer and award-winning playwright and actor known for her Bram Stoker Award-nominated novel, Jackal. Erin, take it away.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything that's been happening tonight. It's so great to see all this energy. And like Sina said, I am the author, Erin E. Adams, author of Jackal. I also have a second novel, One of You, that's coming out. And that novel specifically uses horror to talk about what immigrant families sacrifice when they come to America. And while that book is very much a work of fiction, it came out of my family's spirit of storytelling. And so I wanted to share just a bit of my family's story with all of you tonight. So my family is from a mountaintop in Haiti. It is a town that starts about a mile after the road ends, where farmers, my great-grandmother could not read or write, but she made sure that by the time her children were grown, every single one of them had a university degree. My grandmother came here from Haiti, just her and her two young daughters. But because the US would not recognize my grandmother's education, she worked cleaning hotel rooms for years to make ends meet. My mother and my aunt learned English over the course of one summer by watching Sesame Street. One of my cousins wasn't able to come to the US until she was in high school. She entered high school not speaking or writing English, and she graduated the valedictorian of her class. That is the spirit that immigrants are coming here with. We are here to hope and to dream and to learn. And my family also had our share of growing pains. For example, imagine telling your Haitian mother that your favorite holiday is Halloween. But after she embraced a child that loved morbid things, my mother did the most Haitian mother thing of all and said something so casual that it totally like blew my mind apart. I think we're in like a grocery store or something. And she turns to me and she goes, "Oh, Americans have zombie all wrong. You know that, right?" Like cue horror baby writer awakening. Like, and I don't think even she knows this, but that seed planted a seed of an idea in me, and that has blossomed into my second novel, One of You. And I'd like to read a teeny little bit of that for you all today. Again, this is fiction, not exactly the story she told me, but is the fiction that starts my second book, and I think that it's pretty timely. So here we go. Zombie is not something you fear, it is something you fear becoming. The process itself happens all at once, but to gather the materials, the only thing your would-be captor needs is time. They learn all about you, the secrets in your recipes, how to twist the keys in your locks, the quiet hopes you mumble when you think no one's listening. They learn and learn and learn until they know not only what you fear, but what you would rather die than face. Once they have that piece of you, it is so simple to open up your mind and replace your brains with commands. They'll make you repeat their foolish rhetoric without question. You'll adopt their beliefs about others and yourself. You'll work their fields and not notice the shards of cane buried in your shins. Your wounds will stink with sweetness, but your flesh will heal and scar, because zombie do not rot. It cannot be said they live, they eat in a way. A better way of saying it is they sustain. And there are ways to break this spell, but captors know to keep their zombie busy, because the only threat a zombie poses is to their captor. If anything rots in a zombie, it is their anger, rage, shame, sadness, all made more potent every minute they are asleep. But what happens when they wake? Well, what happens when the person who fed you scraps of poison and made you trust them only to turn you into something worse than a fool suddenly has a face and a name and deep fears of their own? A zombie is not something you fear. It is someone you fear becoming. I am afraid of the US succumbing to the most unfun kind of zombie apocalypse, where freedom is vilified and we're told what to think, and that some people are just more human than others. I'm voting for Kamala. She's a candidate that will sustain the American dream and not turn it into a waking nightmare. So make a plan, vote early if you can, vote. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Erin. Thank you. We cannot vote for a man who has many times mocked disabled people, disparaged disabled people, and has made horrible comments about disabled people. That person is a danger to the disabled community and all Americans. Vice President Harris believes in a future where every single American has the opportunity to not just get by, but to get ahead. Vice President Harris will protect Social Security and Medicare. Vice President Harris will strengthen Social Security and Medicare, and she will fight to ensure that Americans can count on getting the benefits that they earned. No American should go without food or lose their home because of a disability or a major illness. Vice President Harris will make affordable health care a right, not just a privilege, and by expanding the Affordable Care Act, a program that millions of Americans need. Please vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and please donate. Thank you again to everyone for joining us this evening. I'm having a wonderful time, and right now I am delighted to introduce host and Scare Up the Vote committee member, Maxwell Ian Gold. Hi, Max. It's happening. We're doing it.
Yes, it is.
Maxwell Ian Gold is the current executive director of the Horror Writers Association and the acclaimed author of the recently released poetry collection, Bleeding Rainbows and Other Broken Spectrums. Congratulations on those. Take it away, Max.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I want to thank the committee members. I want to thank Tananarive Due for organizing this wonderful event. And before I bring on our next guest, I wanted to talk about some of the reason that I'm here as well and why this is so important. I wanted to talk real quick about a little symbol on Bleeding Rainbows. I'm not going to talk about the book as much as this symbol, this triangle. During World War II, the triangle was actually a symbol used by the Nazis to mark homosexual prisoners of war. The symbol was actually flipped in the 70s as to mean reclaimed to mean silence equals death. But it was a symbol nonetheless to mean less than, that you are less than. So as of 2023, the Anti-Defamation League said there were over about 9,000 anti-Semitic incidents in the United States, an increase of almost actually 9,000 in 2014 over the last 10 years. As a Jewish person, it is terrifying to imagine and to see that right-wing groups, right-wing extremists feel empowered to walk around with symbols and sayings of "there will be blood" or neo-Nazis walking around the street. Last year, there was there were neo-Nazis actually protesting, a queer youth center protesting the sign "there will be blood." So the point is, as we heard some of our previous speakers saying that this is not something that should be normal. We should not even have the thought that there should be people with swastikas just walking around the streets of this country. That being said, the donate link, I don't know which side of my screen it's on, but it's here. The donate link is here. Go register, go vote. This is probably the most important election of our time. So, that being said, stay tuned. We have a ton of guests, really exciting guests coming up, but I am pleased to announce our next guest, Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel. Mike Flanagan is a renowned writer, director, and editor of feature films and television, best known for his work in horror, such as the film Dr. Sleep. And Kate Siegel is a lauded actress and screenwriter who recently made her directorial debut with the short film Stowaway in the anthology VHS Beyond. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure to be here. We are very excited to be here and drumming up some donations and some registration for new voters.
How awesome. We've been geeking out about this all day, about just being included in this incredible roster of amazing, amazing people from the horror community and being able to interact with our fans, because we legitimately, honestly, earnestly feel so lucky to be part of the horror community, and we're fans ourselves.
And
That's how we
truly,
started.
the horror community at its heart is made up of outsiders and weirdos who come together and support each other and cheer for each other and celebrate each other's differences. And I think that is the type of community that can stand firmly behind Kamala Harris in the Harris-Walz campaign. For people who don't always fit in to a very small box, this is a political movement for you to protect those rights, to protect women's rights, final girl rights, and the monstrous outsiders' rights. This is the place to be.
I think one of the things that drew us both to horror, and one of the things that when we first got together kind of bonded us, was our shared love for this genre. And not just for what it does for each of us, because not to go on a little tangent, but I was the kind of kid who was terrified to watch horror. I couldn't do it. I watched it all like this, or I hid behind pillows, or if we had a sleepover and my friends were watching a scary movie, I would pretend to be sick and go home because I couldn't handle it. But I learned mostly by reading Stephen King when I was way too young to read Stephen King, who we just saw in the green room. And it's always awesome.
He's real cute, guys.
Yeah.
He's real cute.
But reading his stuff, it really hit me that I was getting, if I could make it to the end of a scary chapter, or if I could make it to the end of a scary book or the end of a scary movie, I was getting a little braver in tiny controlled increments. And that's what I think horror does. It makes us all more able to confront how scary the real world is. That courage that
to stand up for what you know is right. That courage to announce who you are to the world. As somebody who performs in front of the camera, these very terrified people, I'm often asked in press, what scares you in real life? You know what scares me in real life? Donald Trump presidency. That scares me. That's something like in a movie theater, I go watch Terrifier 3. That's scary. It's done when the lights come up and the credits roll. A Trump presidency will be scary for not only the 4 years we would have to deal with this monster in office, but what's up for election this go around is the Supreme Court. Whoever gets nominated, whoever wins the presidential election will likely appoint 2 more judges to the Supreme Court. And things like AI, women's rights again, trans rights, all of these are about to come to the forefront of the Supreme Court, come to the bench. And if Trump is in office, I guarantee you our rights are in danger. And that's really fucking scary.
I think one of the things that I love the most about this community is how inclusive and celebratory it is.
Mm-hmm.
The horror genre is full of incredible and distinct and diverse voices, both on screen, behind the camera, and in its fandom. It's one of the things that's incredibly beautiful about it. It's how pluralistic it is. And
Pluralistic.
I think what's
I like
Thank
it.
you. I think one of the things that's particularly frightening about the way things could go and are going is that groups who actively are hostile to that kind of inclusion and to that kind of pluralism are emboldened right now, and are perfectly fine taking what used to be a very private kind of hatred and airing it out there without apparent consequence. And that freaks me out.
And so we are asking the horror community that has learned bravery piece by piece every time they read a horror novel, every time they watch a horror film, every time they play a horror video game, to take that bravery that you have learned and stand up to these people and stand up to hate, and don't play it like they play it. Talk to the people you know and tell them the truth. Talk to your parents and talk to your relatives who may not be going for Kamala and Tim, but may have been seduced by Fox News. Talk to them, be brave, communicate, vote, donate, vote, donate. This counts. It really counts this time.
Yeah. But man, what an incredible opportunity for all of us to get together and to see each other, to interact with each other, to interact with you guys.
It was an exceptional opportunity for me to get to wear a new lipstick shade. I was trying it out, and I am thrilled to report that Hamish Linklater, is also here.
There he is. Yeah.
We got Hamish.
We have Hamish. We have Victoria Pedretti.
Mm-hmm. We have Sam
us,
Sloyan.
Samantha Sloyan. And we have and we have Rakakuni with us as well.
All of whom are Harris Waltz voters.
All of whom.
Yeah. Not to mention every character I've ever played votes for Kamala Harris Waltz. Including Viola, who was like, who knew? She was a long time ago, but still.
She died a long time ago.
Not voter fraud.
Yeah. We have been working, though. We wanted to give little minor updates just to the horror fans out there. We've been working really hard for the last couple of weeks. I've been typing away at The Exorcist, which has been consuming all of my time. And if you guys haven't gotten to check out Kate's directorial debut on VHS Beyond
check it out.
It's really fun.
I'm trying to stir up my feature film debut as a director as well.
Yeah, which is going to be pretty great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very exciting time to be a horror fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting time to be a horror fan. Exciting time to donate and vote and donate.
Yeah, I think too, if any of you guys are like us and you have those family members who are somewhat inexplicably kind of
leaning Trump,
and we have a few of them in our family.
We sure do, and we love them, and yet.
Yeah, and yet, it's really, really, really tough to kind of reconcile that sometimes.
And if you're finding yourself too scared to talk to your parents, or it's a dangerous situation, you can also go to KamalaHarris.com. and find different ways to
go.kamalaharris.com.
Kamalaharris.com to find ways to volunteer. You can do things that are very involved, like phone banking and things like that. You can do things that are less involved and mail out postcards. So, guys, I would love to see you get involved. I'm getting involved. I will be nicer to you if I see you at conventions. If you tell me that you
Don't threaten them.
Why not?
Jesus.
I'll do anything it takes, Michael. Anything if my rights are at risk. I am a woman in the world.
Yeah.
I need to woman out in the world. I don't think Trump's going to let me woman out in the world.
He did say rather spectacularly recently that he would be the protector. I know.
I don't like that.
I know. It was a moment. It was really a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the man, I'm surprised that he even said a full sentence.
Well, yeah. I don't know. He can monologue. That's for sure.
And you would know.
And I would know, having been guilty of monologuing.
Yeah.
Myself.
You guys, this has been a really great fireside chat about monologues.
I know.
Again, I'm very joyous to be here talking to you guys and fans that I love and chatting with Mike and talking about this, but this is serious. Let's be serious here. Like, we can't let the world go out this way. We can't let our country go out this way. We've really got to rally and rise up and be brave and fight for what we know is right.
It's one of the things that, as this kid who was scared of everything, and I was scared of everything. It really took a lot for me to try to find that kind of daily courage, the kind to like go to school and interact with my peers and with my teachers. As I got older, the kind to like really develop good friendships or to approach girls that I wanted to talk to.
That's why fun fact, I was the one who had to walk up to Mike Flanagan. I was holding 2 lemon drop shots and I was like, enough screwing around. This is happening.
She did. She said, and I quote, enough screwing around. This is happening. And I was terrified.
He was terrified, but that's the right response.
That is the right
walking
response.
up to you.
Yeah. But yeah, bringing that kind of courage into the real world, taking those kinds of those moments, those opportunities to try to summon bravery and community that I think horror is so naturally good at, that it just so kind of easily ferments in people. That's something that we were so excited when Tananarive asked if we would be part of this, because it was
absolutely.
Like, what a wonderful opportunity.
Such a great group of people to talk about something that really matters.
Yeah.
Which is the future of our country and the way that the individual can help. I think in today's world, the individual is so often just smooshed into a lump of the whole as viewership or as likes or comments. But there are moments where the individual can make a difference. And we're in one of those right now. The race is going to be close. And so every single individual counts. Please vote. Please donate. Please volunteer. It is time to stand up. It is time to fight with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have much more other than that to say, other than that it's a joy to be here.
I sort of want to like pop into the comment section and see if there isn't anything
They told us not
crazy.
to pop
They
into the
told us
comment
not
section.
to, but I think we can do it.
Holy crap.
That's what I'm saying. It's insane to me. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
For Jamie Flanagan, vote Harris. I agree too. All right, you guys are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think this is the woman's ready to woman like a mofo. Get it, Nicole? Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, Kate. Please DM me that lipstick shade name.
I will tell you, it is NARS Cruella.
I'm writing it down. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you both so much. And so much of what you said, I think is so important. And I just want to reiterate, be brave, fight for what's right, stand up to these people, stand up to hate. And this one really counts. Thank you both so much for being here.
I also want to say we quickly like zoomed up and down that comment section and everybody is so supportive and so kind. And like, yes, guys, yes, this is the community. This is the type of battle cry that I want. We are going to take this support and we're going to take over the world.
Boy, a whole lot of people really wanted to know about that lipstick. So I'm really glad
It is Cruella by NARS.
Yeah.
I am unsponsored, by the way. I just have the little chubbies. Oh, wait, I think I have it.
You have the actual.
Okay, thank you. See, everyone, this is what we're to the next conference.
I mean, honestly, wear it when you vote. Take a picture of you wearing it and register to vote, and I will repost you. Boom, done.
Boom, done. And then go.kamalaharris.com.
Yep, go.kamalaharris.com. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is just an amazing night. Thank you all for your excitement. Thank you all for your support. Please donate if you have not donated yet. It goes directly to the campaign. Please donate. Our next guest, I am absolutely honored to introduce, is Victor LaValle. Hi, Victor.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. So Victor LaValle is a renowned author of novels, novellas, short fiction, and comics, including the critically praised novel, The Changeling. Victor, take it away. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to be a part of this. And before I dive into, since I'm a writer, I prepared my remarks in a short statement. But I did want to say before I dive into that if you see, let me see if I'll do this right. If you see this QR code kind of there-ish, you can scan that QR code to donate toward the campaign, and we would seriously appreciate that. And then you also see down here, go.kamalaharris.com as a way for you to move from this site after everyone's done over to those sites, and to support with your with money and support with your interest. And on that site, I'm sure there's as when I've jumped on those, there's lots of ways for you to find ways to get plugged in much more locally, since, as we all know, this is going to be the local is political. In fact, even I am going to hop into my remarks, I swear. But last night, my wife and I had our 11-year-old son join us as we were filling out postcards to send out to voters who we hope will feel the urgency to go out and vote on November 5th, and that maybe a postcard from some random other human being will help support that idea as well. Okay, so I don't know about you, but horror saved my life. I say that, but if you're here on the Scare Up the Vote webcast, then I would imagine you might love the horror genre as much as me. There's the cool, creepy stuff, the gonzo, disgusting stuff, and everything in between. So how can anyone sum up horror in a simple way? Of course, you can't. But as I thought about what I would say tonight, it occurred to me that one thing that horror regularly does, not always, but often, is to tell the stories of outsiders and misfits who come face to face with powers that seem impossible to defeat. Vampires, werewolves, legions of zombies, killer plagues, demons from hell, malevolent beings from other dimensions, cannibal families, serial killing individuals, and that's barely scratching the surface of what people face in horror fiction, television, film, and campfire tales. And yet, much of the time, if not all the time, these stories return to the idea of human resilience. In particular, the triumphant victory of those outsiders and misfits. That says something about who and what horror values. Average people who must go toe-to-toe against impossible odds. That's many of us, if not most of us. Horror has saved my life repeatedly because it has made me believe it's possible to defeat something that should destroy me easily. With courage, endurance, and fearlessness, maybe I could face the monsters in my own life too. Which brings us to this upcoming election. I will be voting for Kamala Harris for President of the United States and Tim Walz for Vice President. I'm in favor of bodily autonomy for women, support for transgender rights, an overhaul of the American justice system, and an aggressive fight against climate change. Of the two parties we can choose from, I know for sure that only one of them is capable of giving me what I want, what our country needs. My vote for the Democratic Party is a vote to hold them accountable for the future I want for my kids and everyone else's. The opponent we face, and everyone else too, obviously, the opponent we face means to destroy every freedom I enjoy, to turn back the clock on American progress, and to reassert the ugliest and most destructive form of American power. But I've learned a lot from a lifetime of loving horror. I know monsters can be defeated, and in the real world, we can defeat them with our votes. I thank you for listening. Please vote in the upcoming election. Let's win. That's it.
Thank you, Victor. Yes, and just to reiterate, please vote and please donate. I am pointing to the right side. So I'd like to introduce our next guest. Our next speaker is Rachel Harrison. Rachel Harrison is the USA Today bestselling author of the novel So Thirsty.
Hello. Everybody hear me?
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, so my name is Rachel Harrison. I'm really grateful to be here with you all tonight. I've written 5 novels, most recently So Thirsty, and they all center around women reckoning with both real and supernatural horror. So as horror lovers, we know there's a lot in this world to be afraid of. Vengeful ghosts, hungry zombies, bloodthirsty vampires, garden gnomes who clearly come alive when we are not looking, and the idea that a dangerous, unstable, egomaniac cartoon villain could be elected president again and become a dictator. But I don't really want to talk about fear. I kind of want to focus on rage. I never realized how angry I was until my protagonist started to act out, curse a bad date to spit bones from their mouth, transform into werewolves and rip apart prey limb from limb, turn into vampires and chew through some asshole's neck. I couldn't help but wonder, am I maybe perhaps walking around with suppressed rage? The answer is, of course I am, because I have to listen to guys like J.D. Vance tell me I'm not valuable as a woman because I don't have kids, that my only purpose in this life is to be a wife and to bear children. Only it's dangerous to be pregnant in this country. Trump made sure of that. I have a friend who endured a high-risk pregnancy. I have a friend still reeling from a traumatic childbirth, a friend who suffered a devastating miscarriage. And I've watched these women that I love struggle to get adequate care in the system as it is now. The thought of it getting worse and the thought of losing them because men, they don't know, decided their bodies don't matter infuriates me. The thought that my right to make decisions about my own body and my own life could be lost in November makes me so angry. I want to go out during the next full moon and howl and sink my teeth into something. I wish I were a monster so I didn't have to worry about these men. I wish that I didn't have to watch a rapist named Donald J. Trump select a rapist named Brett Kavanaugh to become a Supreme Court justice. I wish we didn't have to watch a sexual assault survivor who was brave enough to come forward be questioned and doubted every day in the news in 2018. I wish that all sexual assault survivors who have been questioned and doubted, that we didn't have to be re-traumatized by that. It was really painful. And from that pain came rage. Something else horror lovers know. You don't want to be on the wrong side of an angry girl. A final girl. Trump and Vance, they think we are weak. They think they can grab us by the pussy. They think they can strip us of our rights to our own bodies. They think that we are disposable. They are so wrong. We will fight back no matter what. We will be battered, bloody, crawling through the dirt, wielding whatever weapon that we can find. And the weapon we have now is our vote. I am voting for Kamala Harris because she is a vocal supporter of a woman's right to choose and an advocate for women's health care. I am voting for Kamala Harris because she is a strong and capable leader, because she is proactive and experienced, because she is compassionate and respectful, and because I trust her with the future of this country. This election is critical. It's about our survival. And I don't know about you, but I am not giving up. I'm not taking it lying down. I am going to make my voice heard this election. I'm going to make sure it's heard this election. I am going to howl. I'm going to scream bloody murder until my throat is raw, until those who dismiss me can no longer ignore that I am a goddamn force of nature. Don't forget that you are too. I hope you will join me on Tuesday, November 5th in voting for Kamala Harris, in fighting back and choosing hope. You can donate using the QR code on the screen, and you can go to gokamalaharris.com to volunteer. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much to Rachel Harrison. And if you listen, that's the sound of every single woman in horror right now howling. Thank you again, Rachel, for this very important message. And like Rachel said, you don't want to be on the wrong side of an angry girl, a final girl. I am now excited to introduce our next guest, Billy Martin. Hi, Billy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's a delight. Billy Martin is a multifaceted writer, essayist, and painter known for the Gothic work set in New Orleans, including Exquisite Corpse, written under the name Poppy Z. Bright. Thank you so much for being here with us, Billy. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing something that's a little bit different because I'm not speaking off the cuff. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from my essay, Redefining the Borders, My Experience of Queerness Horror Fiction. It was published in Gamut magazine earlier this year. My experience of queerness and horror fiction began with A Vampire's Victim. I don't actually recall the first time I read Carmilla, Sheridan Le Fanu's 1872 novella about a lonely lesbian vampire and the girl who falls in love with her. I remember being 14 or 15, already having read the story, regarding it as a kind of validation I didn't fully understand. Le Fanu tells the tale in the first person, narrated by the girl, Laura, which gives it an added air of intimacy. I was a lonely kid myself and spent a lot of time at the library. One day in 1983 or thereabouts, I picked up a collection of essays about horror fiction. I wish to God I could remember the author's name and began reading a piece on Carmilla. My eye slammed to a stop on a sentence that referred to the narrator as he. Now, I didn't know anything misgender or erasure. I just knew I felt a literal pain in my heart, a kind of dull stabbing. I may have made some kind of noise. Memory wants me to add a librarian glancing at me, but that could be embellishment. I was too consumed by rage to care either way. Laura's father refers to her several times as his daughter. Carmilla describes her as a beautiful young lady with golden hair and large blue eyes and lips, your lips, you, as you are here. Her name is Laura, for Christ's sake. But this now nameless critic had apparently found it easier to ignore all that than to imagine that passages like her hot lips traveled along my cheek in kisses, and she would whisper, almost in sobs, "You're mine, you shall be mine, you and I are one forever." To imagine that that might be written by one female character about another. Years later, I would realize that the critic was probably bothered by more than just the possibility of lesbianism. Le Fanu's male characters are largely ineffective, and the action of the story is moved forward by the women due to their love for one another. At the time, I only knew I'd found something rare and important, and this jackass was trying to take it away from me. I flipped to the biographical notes, already planning the letter I would write to shut the stupid SOB down, and was crushed to learn that he was dead. As much as Carmilla meant to me, it wasn't the story I truly wanted because I wasn't a lesbian. I didn't have the vocabulary or the experience to say what I was. I knew I was supposed to be a girl, and I didn't yet know that that was negotiable. I wasn't good at what my peers considered girl stuff, but I wasn't a tomboy either. My favorite movie was Cabaret. All I really knew was that I was some kind of queer. Though that word hadn't yet been fully reclaimed, I liked it for its inclusiveness. I tried to convince myself that I was bisexual, but at heart I knew I wasn't sexually attracted to women. The stories I was most drawn to were those of gay men. It doesn't make any kind of logical sense that a 15-year-old girl growing up in the South should identify with an aging, drug-addicted New York City drag queen. But in Andrew Holleran's 1978 novel, Dancer from the Dance, the drag queen character, Sutherland, tells his young protege, "We are not doomed because we are homosexual, my dear. We are doomed only if we live in despair because of it." I vowed that I wouldn't live in despair because of what I was. But what was I? That's the end of the excerpt. I much later figured out that I was a transgender gay man. Began transition when I was 44 years old, relatively late in life, but it's been the best time of my life since then. My husband is also HIV positive. I'm frankly not convinced that either of us is going to survive another Trump presidency. So for that and so many other reasons, I am going to be voting for Harris and Walz, and I hope you will too. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you so much for that. So I would like to bring on our final guest for this segment. Our next guest is Keith Rawson. Keith Rawson is an award-winning novelist and short fiction writer, and most recently known for The Devil by Name, the conclusion to his apocalyptic duology. Keith, welcome.
Thank you so much. So I just want to come to everybody less as a horror author, actually, and more as an old punk. I came of age in the 90s and early aughts as in a kind of like hyper-political punk stuff where it was very stringent and there was no nuance to it, and it was very cynical in the sense of the kind of like political machine, and the kind of relentlessness of American politics and how there was no difference in the two parties and all of that. And to some degree, I still feel that frustration. And yet at the same time, the difference between these two parties cannot be more vast. With a Harris-Walz administration, we have the possibility for small, fierce, incremental footholds that can bloom and blossom into bigger things. And with a Trump Vance ticket, we don't have that. We don't even have the potential for that. It's essentially like Trump will do a revenge tour, and Vance and Peter Thiel and all the Project 2025 guys will just do vast devastation to every social or environmental change that's been made in the past decades, So to me, as someone who has realized that there is a vast amount of difference between the two parties, it just, to me, cannot be more clear. So I'm choosing the path of fierce fighting for incremental change, because I believe that that is possible with this administration. And it is not with Trump and Vance. And it's that simple for me. So please, oh man, I thought I had it. Go to this QR code and donate, and go to GoKamalaHarris.com and donate there. And thank you. Please vote. Please donate. Let's do this. Thank you very much. Back to the team.
Wow. This has been incredible. I hope you can hear me. That green room is so exciting. Watching the donations roll in has been very exciting. In fact, I'm ready to give you an update right now. We have about $16,000 we have raised. I say we need to make that an even 20 maybe even 25 before this evening is over. So $10, $20, $50, if you really want to splurge, $100 will really, really help out. And also, it's not always about money. In fact, right now we need to get the voters out. It's not so much even registering new voters or even just checking your registration, but to make sure that people are registered or actually going to go vote. So if you go to go.kamalaharris.com, you'll see a lot of resources in terms of how can you write letters that are very personal that might touch a voter. How can you phone bank? I remember I did that during Obama's first election run. So there are a lot of other ways we can help besides money, but also I want to get to that 20 or that 25. This has been a great event. We have a great writer, obviously, coming up next. Paul Tremblay is an award-winning novelist, short story writer, and essayist, math teacher, and his latest novel, Horror Movie, is a horror movie within a book. What? It's so compelling, so great. Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thank you, Tananarive. I really appreciate it. And man, it's going to be hard to match your energy. All right, so I'm just going to jump in and add to my introduction, I guess. Hi, I'm Paul Tremblay, author of A Head Full of novels, A Head Full of Ghosts, The Cabin at the End of the World, which was adapted as the Universal Pictures film Knock at the Cabin, and most recently, as Tananarive mentioned, Horror Movie, a novel. What a clever title. If I'm known for anything, it's for writing ambiguous and grim bummer horror stories. Sorry, I gotta be me. Well, my love of horror started when I was a kid, watching the Universal Monsters and Godzilla movies. I have quite a few Godzillas here at my desk. When those movies appeared on a local Boston television program called Creature Double Feature. And I watched every Saturday from ages like 7 to 10. And yeah, those movies, silly as they were, gave me nightmares. It didn't help that I was afraid of the dark, and I used to sleep with stuffed animal fortress built around my head. And yeah, I'm really considering bringing back the stuffed animals to help me sleep again now. Later, when I was a teenager in the latter half of the 1980s, the fun Hollywood horrors started to mix with the Reagan Cold War realities and the very real possibility of nuclear Armageddon, as well as our government's shameful non-response to the AIDS epidemic. And yes, as grim as the 80s were, I still needed horror stories in my life then, because that writers and filmmakers demonstrated through their work that they recognized there was something terribly wrong in the world, no matter how grim or glum, that those writers and filmmakers felt like I did. That helped me feel less overwhelmed and less alone. That's how horror stories gave and give me hope. Now, of course, there's no shortage of real-world horrors now, including the genocide being committed by the Israeli government, the worsening climate crisis, emboldened white supremacists, the assault on reproductive rights and queer and trans rights. I don't have an easy solution to offer to you, but I am confident that adding more Trumpian horror to the mix is not a solution. In 2018, 2019, I wrote a novel called Survivor Song, and that book was published eventually in 2020. And it featured an outbreak of a super rabies virus, as well as an overwhelmed and underfunded medical community, anti-vaxxers and conspiracy theorists, all stuff that became really familiar to us. Yeah, that book was a barrel of laughs to read for the poor readers of 2020. But at least that book didn't have an ambiguous ending, right? Anyway, in Survivor Song, my least difficult fictive forecast was that a Trump administration would respond poorly to a pandemic. If anything, I underestimated how poor the response would be. Unfortunately, in 2024, we're at the precipice of full fascism, and it's not difficult to predict the horrors that will unfold if Donald Trump is president again. Believe that man when he says he will persecute his enemies. Don't believe that man when he says he will not enact the monstrous retrograde visions of Project 2025. Okay, that's enough of the grim. Where's the hope? The people who organize this event give me hope. The people participating tonight give me hope. The people watching tonight, you give me hope. The people out there organizing and volunteering and protesting and demanding what is right from their elected officials gives me hope. So please, get out there and vote for Harris Walz, so that we can continue to work toward and demand humane policies for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Fantastic, Paul. Thank you so much for that. These testimonies and stories have been so heartfelt and so moving. I am about to bring on a powerhouse duo, but with a story instead of just a standard introduction. This event, as some of you know, began with a tweet. I noticed that Crime Writers for Harris was having a call like this, and I was like, what the heck? Where's the horror community? It's our month, it's Halloween. We don't have a thing going, and I didn't know how to start one of these. I've never done anything like this. Literally the first person I emailed in terms of just trying to say, well, would we be able to put a field together if we wanted to do this, was Joe Hill. And within a day, he had answered, I'm in, Dad is in, Mike Flanagan is in, and we had the makings of an event that we could galvanize our horror community around. So I am so grateful to these two who are going to appear together, which is incredible. Joe Hill is the New York Times bestselling author of several lauded works, one of the most recently adapted for film, The Black Phone. Love that movie. Stephen King really, honestly, needs no introduction, but he is a legendary storyteller, multi-award winning, Presidential Medal of Arts, hello, and his most recently released short story collection, You Like It Darker. Stephen King and Joe Hill.
Hi.
Hey, it's nice to be
Tananarive,
here.
it's so
nice
great
to be
seeing
here.
you. Hi,
Go
guys.
ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
It's good to see you, Dad. So yeah, we're gonna talk a little politics, but we're gonna talk a little horror first. It is the spooky season, which is my favorite time of year.
We got to
And,
talk some horror. We got to do that because that's why people came, I think.
yeah. So
the two terrifiers.
yeah. So all right. So let's clear this up. What are the 3 all-time best horror films you've ever seen? The all-time 3 favorites.
I knew you were going to ask me that. And man, it changes all the time. Okay. I said one thing to USA Today, and I'm going to say another thing right now. I think the 3 best horror films, Night of the Living Dead, before it became kind of a midnight movie, The Changeling, because George C. Scott was great in that. And it just, everything kind of like happened. It was just very creepy, just a ball
Kid
going
pounding
down
on the
floor.
bath. The kid pounding on
And
the side of the bathtub.
my favorite tonight is The Descent, which is a movie about women who are crawling. Just everything about that just appealed to my claustrophobia. And, you know, it was just a fantastic movie. I saw it with J.J. Abrams and the guy who produced Lock and Key.
Carlton Cuse.
Carlton Cuse.
You saw it with Carlton
all of
Cuse.
those guys. Yeah.
No one invited me.
Say
I
what?
didn't go. You guys went without me.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I hope you had fun.
What are your 3 favorites?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and like you, it changes. You know, it's
Yeah,
one thing one
yeah.
day and another thing another day. I think The Exorcist. You know that the Exorcist is the most ferociously terrifying film ever made. It's funny you said Night of the Living Dead, because the one that I'm really crazy for is Dawn of the Dead, which is, you know, so scary and so gruesome, but also so much fun.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I'm doing chores like folding the laundry, and the mall music from Dawn of the Dead comes creeping into my head. That nun.
Yeah.
And maybe it's cheating to count a family film. But I thought It Chapter 1 was really scary. That there's never really been a shocker like it, you know, that was so big, you know.
And when you said, maybe we'll talk about the 3 best horror books, The Exorcist was on my list for the best books. You know, Exorcist as a movie could be on the list, and Texas Chainsaw could be there, Psycho could be there. There's so many. But yeah.
Is there one horror film you wish more people had seen? You know, one horror film that's kind of, you know, flown under the radar that you wish had got more attention?
Man, a lot of them kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah, some
I would
good
say
ones.
Probably the one that comes immediately to mind is The Babadook.
Oh yeah, that is a good one. I think people have caught that one a little bit. I've wondered
There's one now, Strange Darling, that's in the theaters right now, and that's a terrific movie.
Oh, I'd like to
It's
see
the kind of
that.
movie where you can't even talk about it, man. You can't even talk about it because you give away too much. The minute you open your mouth, you give away the. It's as good as a M. Night movie almost.
One that I love that I don't think many people have seen is a picture set almost entirely on a lonely farm called The Dark and the Wicked. And that was one, that movie scared the shit out of me. I mean, I was just, just about crawling under the blankets while I watched it. It just never lets up. I wasn't sure when it was over that I really understood what it was all about. There's this family being persecuted by this force of evil, and I never really understood what the force was or why they were being attacked, but I kind of didn't care because it was just such an effective scenario.
But Joe, nothing can compete with or compare to "They're coming to get you, Barbara."
Yeah,
there's one now. That's a great moment.
We're gonna get to politics, but I wanna ask one more horror question. If there's one horror novel you wish you had written, which would it be?
Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh God, that's a great one.
Yeah. I wish I'd written that, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the name
What
of the
about you?
carnival was. Dark
What about
Carnival.
you? Real
Say
quick.
again, what'd you say? What'd you say?
One horror novel that you wish you'd written.
Me?
Yeah.
Well,
Tremblay,
again, if I'm allowed to pick. Okay, so wait. If I'm allowed to pick family, I'd pick it, which I sometimes feel like I've been trying to write my whole life. I mean, Nosferatu is kind of like me trying to write it. The new one that isn't out yet, King Sorrow, in the way it spreads out over time and is evil recurring through time, is kind of like
Well, your mother said you can't call a novel it because the critics will call it shit. And some of them did.
Mom has had some good ones about. Mom has had some good ones about what the critics were going to say. She said you told her you were going to title a book Insomnia, and she said the critics are going to say Insomnia cures it. So I'll tell you though, we do have people here to talk politics a little bit, and I'll tell you about one scary thing that I read recently that that pained me a great deal to read. I recently read the story of a woman named Amber Thurman who died of sepsis when she was denied the medical care she desperately needed in Georgia. Under Georgia's abortion ban, doctors couldn't risk operating on her to save her life because the necessary procedure has been outlawed. In the aftermath of the Supreme Court's decision to toss out Roe v. Wade, she died because a bunch of legally untouchable black robe partisans decided it's fine to jam the government into the space between a woman and her doctor. And 3 of those justices were appointed by Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump gets another 4 years in office, he's almost certainly going to replace Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito with 2 guys who are just as partisan and just as indifferent to suffering in the real world, but are half their age. And I mean, it's nuts and it's sick and it's going to get women killed. So if you want to know one of the reasons why I wanted to do this tonight, one of the reasons why I'm here and why I hope that you will, there's a link here, and I hope you guys will click it and give some money. I hope you'll, get active and volunteer. One of the reasons I'm behind Harris is because I'm mortally afraid of what will happen if we get 4 more years of Trump's craziness and Trump's anger and Trump's chaos.
Yeah. Well, I think that Donald Trump is morally reprehensible, but he's also become someone who is almost, well, let's put it this way. the cheese is definitely slipping off his cracker.
Cracker.
You know, I think that he would be an extremely dangerous choice for president. And I also see a lot of the things that my buddy Margaret Atwood wrote about in The Handmaid's Tale actually coming to pass in this country, because so much of it is based on a sort of a Judeo-Christian religion instead of on the Constitution where it actually belongs. But you know, I think that one of the things is Kamala Harris is like fresh air in a stuffy room. She's clear, she's young, she's very capable of doing the job, but she's also calm and she's steady. I believe in her standpoint on reproductive rights. Obviously, that's very important. I mean, women should have that right across America, not state by state, but all the way across America, because we are a nation of laws and not of religion. You know, you're bound to, you're welcome to believe, but you're not welcome to infringe on my beliefs. So she's for healthcare. She's for good immigration policies, you know, tough. She's a former prosecutor. And there are a lot of reasons that I'm for Kamala Harris, but the major reason is she's not Donald Trump. And there's a final push going on here, and it's important. I mean, it's a matter of democracy, the American way of life. You know that Donald Trump is going to protest this election, and the only thing that's going to keep him from doing that is they kick his ass from sea to shining sea.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I hope that's what will happen.
I want to say something too, because I kind of want to go back to the whole, the whole thing about Trump doesn't seem terribly with it anymore. You know, last night he did a Q&A, and the Q&A went about 20 minutes, and then there was an interruption because someone was unwell in the crowd. And then he decided, that was it for questions. And then he stood there for a half an hour and kind of bobbed around to his music, and the thing is,
it was the white man dance, it's the white man dance is when you can move your shoulders a tiny bit, but you can't move your ass at all. You just have to,
he went to a strange, vague place, and he stayed there for a half an hour, and I would just say to people, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are tuned in who have already decided they're supporting Harris Walz, and that's great. There may be a few people watching who are on the fence or Trump curious, and all I'll say is, I'm an Obama Biden guy. I love Joe Biden. He got insulin down to $35 a month for a lot of seniors. I know that Harris wants to take it further. That she wants to do that for a lot of other prescription drugs. I think it's ridiculous that sick people in this country can pay thousands of dollars for medicines that only cost $7 a month in Canada or the UK. That's nuts and doesn't comport with any definition of freedom that I understand. But I would just go back to saying, she seems clear and sensible, sharp, witty and warm and tough, and also seems like she'll surround herself with good people. Whereas Trump, if you were uneasy about Biden because Biden seemed a little bit exhausted, a little bit, older and a little bit exhausted, I'd say take a good look at Trump. Even just in the last 48 hours, he seems diminished and a little, not terribly well. So anyway, I think there's a lot to be said for voting for someone who get good advice.
I think we're all on the same page about this, and the most important thing is you got to get out and vote, and you got to take two people with you. It's like Neil Diamond says, pack up the babies and all the old ladies, and
Yeah.
Everyone knows to vote, and let's make this really happen. And it's the final push. And this is the commercial part of our endeavor. There is a QR code right at the top of the screen you can click on. And you can also check out
KamalaHarris.com.
KamalaHarris.com. That's right.
Give it a click.
Mine says Kamala Harris, but that's
throw
not
a couple bucks. Throw a couple bucks in the hat if you can afford it. Get involved. Make a plan to vote. I said in the warm up to this, Trump is a guy who spreads anger and chaos everywhere he goes. He's a walking human rage virus, and this thing he stokes up fury in his supporters, and he provokes it in everyone else, and all this hostility is terrible for the country, and it's not going to go away until he does.
Joe,
so let's make it happen on November 5th.
Joe, you know who he reminds me of is Sauron in and Mar-a-Lago. It's really, I mean, he's a bad motor scooter. So go out there and throw a couple of bucks in the hat and vote and bring
bring it home
and bring a car full. So
thanks so much, guys. It was great talking to you. I really enjoyed this data. It was great talking to you. Tananarive, thank you for making this happen. It's unbelievable.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. The chat is literally on fire. Thank you guys both so much for
thanks everyone who tuned in tonight. I appreciate it.
Helping to make this real and helping us galvanize around your energy. And thank you for that great message. So don't leave, everybody. We have a great show still remaining, just the last few, but worth waiting for. Definitely listen to what Stephen King and Joe Hill just said. There's a QR code. We are at, let me look at my total right now. We're at about $17,500. We can get to 20. We can get to 20 between now and the end of the evening. So let's just squeeze down, but also go.kamalaharris.com is the link where you go to find out how you can volunteer, how you can write letters, how you can knock on doors, although in some neighborhoods I would not do that. So use your judgment if you're going to be knocking on doors. But there are a lot of ways to phone bank. We really, as they said, the margins are going to be tight. And Trump is definitely going to try to contest this election. And the more, as you so eloquently said, we can kick his ass. I forget exactly how you put it, but I heard the kick his ass part. If we can kick his ass, then we get to celebrate the victory of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz much sooner rather than biting our fingernails down to the quick. I just don't even want to imagine that. Let's win this thing, and let's win this thing big. Okay, so thank you both, guys. Coming up next, no pressure. No pressure following these two. Alma Katsu is an award-winning horror and thriller writer, intelligence expert, technology futurist, and author of the acclaimed The Fervor and real ones know, The Hunger. Welcome, Alma.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no pressure. I had no idea I'd be following up those two gentlemen. Boy, are the rest of you in for a disappointment. But, as Tananarive has said, most of you know me as a writer of historical horror. Unlike the other speakers, I'm really not very entertaining, right? I'm not an actor. I'm not a singer. I'm not going to dance for you or recite poetry. Unlike the rest of them, I had a 35-year career in intelligence working for the federal government. Now, I've worked in every administration from Ronald Reagan to Trump. I retired during Trump. I've been in the West Wing. I've worked in the halls of the Pentagon. I've briefed Congress. I briefed at the cabinet level. So, when they asked me to participate in this, I was wondering, what should I say? And also, you've already heard a lot of folks cover a lot of really important issues. And so I didn't want to go over that ground again. So what I want to focus on might seem a little niche to you, but I want to talk about what a second Trump term will do to the government, to the American government. I'm worried about it. I've talked to a lot of former colleagues. Government workers are very worried about a second Trump administration. And it's not just because he's threatening to make people, do these loyalty pledges and to eradicate the government and all this good expertise. Excuse me. If he doesn't think they're going to support him and not the government. The people who are most worried, I think, are the ones in intelligence and national security, because they know what a risk he is, and that he's just not up for the job. Now, who saved America the last time around? It's the folks that Trump referred to as the deep state. Now, we know there is no deep state. That's a fallacy. The deep state is nothing but federal employees who knew it was their job to hold the line when people without integrity tried to get them to break the law or otherwise, abuse their government position. If there's a deep state, Mike Pence is the deep state, right? He's the one who stood up when it counted and told Trump that his cockamamie plans were unconstitutional and that he would not go along with it. That's the deep state. You may not be aware, but an administration is not just the president. It's the people that come along with them. And Joe Hill alluded to this, right? He said Kamala Harris is going to surround herself with good people. Well, we know what Donald Trump has done before. Washington is a company town. It's very small. A lot of us government workers know each other. We've worked together, over the decades. And we knew that the people that Donald Trump brought with him in his first term were terrible, right? They had no experience. They didn't know what they were doing. That's why there was such chaos. Well, this time around, Donald Trump doesn't even have those third-rate stringers with him. I mean, so many people who worked for him in his previous administration have sworn that they would never work for him again and are planning to vote for Harris. The only ones we have left are people like Kash Patel, who was highlighted in a New York Times piece, who Trump may make the director of Central Intelligence. Read that article. Kash is definitely not the kind of guy you want to have in charge of national intelligence. He's one of these folks, this cadre of people who are willing to trade their loyalty at this chance for power and glory that they would not have otherwise. The job of every federal employee is very simple. It's to serve the American people, to defend the nation, and uphold the Constitution. Those three simple things. Well, we already know that Donald Trump can't do it, and Donald Trump won't do it. But who will do it is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a great public servant. She's dedicated her entire life to serving the American people. She exemplifies the ideals that inspire, and motivate the government employees. She sets the right example, and that is exactly what you need in a leader. So listen to what everyone else has told you to do today. If you have the means, use that QR code. Whoops, sorry. Now I see why everyone was having such a hard time pointing to it. Use the QR code. But really, we have to all keep fighting like hell until Election Day, right? Have your voting plan. Talk to your neighbors. Make sure they have their voting plan. Because together, we'll be able to do this. Together, we can save our country. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Tananarive. You are a force of nature. Thank you for putting this together. Thanks to all the volunteers. And now I'm going to hand it back to the Scare crew.
And see, that was great because you bring the experience and you can speak to it from a level that most of us have not experienced. So thank you so much for that. I am so psyched about our next guest. And I'll actually add the segment where you talk about favorite movies. One of my favorite movies of last year was Late Night with the Devil. And the star of that movie, David Dastmalchian, just won a Chainsaw Award, I think, for Best Lead Actor, if I'm not mistaken. Should win all the prizes, as far as I'm concerned. Great film, a great actor, a friend. I'm so glad you're here. He is an actor, writer, and producer known for his love of the horror genre. This man lives horror. people. He lives it. It's not just a fad. And more recently, for winning the Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Lead Performance in Late Night with the Devil, which bears repeating. Welcome, David Dasmalchian. Yeah.
Hey, hello, Monster Kids. David here with Bubblegum, getting in the mode for spooky season. I'm honored that I get to be here tonight and talk about things that I'm really passionate about, which include monsters, good monsters. As the great Emil Ferris says, their world is populated with good and bad monsters, and we see it all over the place in storytelling, in movies, in our daily lives, in politics. It's an honor. Yeah, thank you, Tananarive, for that glorious introduction. I love you so much. I'm so happy we're friends, and I think it's just so rad that people have responded to Late Night with the Devil. I'm so proud of that film. And I'm grateful that we won the Chainsaw Award for performance. Our Colin and Cameron, our director-writer team won. But yeah, I've been keeping busy in excitement of spooky season, share some things with you guys. Oh, my newest horror comic is on your shelves. If you like comic books, Creature Commandos, which features some amazing, this variant cover by the great Jim Lee, is something that makes me very excited. I've got Knights versus Samurai on shelves now. That was a cool variant we had done by the great Todd McFarlane. I'm part of the DC Horror Presents this year. Look at that beautiful Tyler Crook horror Superman. Who thought Superman could be so terrifying? I'm also contributing to a new Kolchak comic book. Any Kolchak fans out there? I'm a diehard Kolchak fan, and my comic book, Count Crowley, is very inspired by Kolchak, the Night Stalker. Anyway, excited to be here to talk to you all. It's such an important moment in history, in all of our lives, in the history of the world, but in our country. And I just wanted to say really quick, you know, it's unfair that I believe that the Republican Party and someone like Donald Trump often waves this banner of being the rule of law people. It's such crap. This guy's been convicted, charged with more crimes than a number of people I can mention, including, you know, people hunted down by Kolchak. But Kamala Harris knows and understands the law of this country and wants to continue to help and not only enforce that, but move us into the future in a way that protects all of the citizens of this great country. The women who currently are unable to have safety in their bodies, people who are marginalized and those who are in at-risk communities, as well as all of us who are currently afraid of the violence that's being perpetrated by guns. So with her very strong vision for the kind of America that I want to be living in, I am excited to be casting my vote and my support and all that I can give to hoping to get her elected as the next president of the United States. I think that it is a shame that it is so monopolized to be able to get into people's first home. Home ownership is just one of the key tickets into and affordable housing, affordable living. It is a huge tenet and a huge part of her platform and a mission for her to help families be the first time homeowners with incentives through tax law, as well as you know, support from the government that I believe she would be running so much more efficiently. It's so unfair that Donald Trump gets all this credit as being like the economy guy. That's a joke. We all know that. We understand why that's crap, but a lot of people don't, because it's an easy soundbite. He was on a bad reality show. He's a terrible business person. And we want business not just run for the corporate and the elites. We want it run for everybody. And I think that social justice comes with economic justice, comes with human justice, and human rights are enforced by people having access to housing, food, healthcare, and safety. Thank you for letting me be here. Please make sure you donate. The QR code is on your screen now. Of course, go to Kamala's website to support. Thank you for having me. Happy Halloween. Stay spooky. Creep it real. And thanks for being here and showing up. And please encourage everybody you know to make sure they vote. Even in places where you feel like your vote may not matter, I promise you it does. Every single vote is going to matter this election. Go.kamalaharris.com. Please go to that site right now, or click on the awesome QR code hanging out above my head. Somewhere there next to Christopher Lee, I believe, or who's up there? Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Okay, thanks for having me. Happy Halloween. Stay spooky. Tananarive, thank you for doing this. And yeah, I love you guys. Thank you so much, monsters.
Thank you so much, David. That's I forgot your catchphrase. Keep it creepy. I don't know, but anyway, great catchphrases, a great message. You know, one of the things that strikes me about horror people, you know, we have a reputation for being kind of strange and having this strange taste for being scared, but we're also very empathetic people, and we're very hope-filled. And honestly, it's the sweetest community. You've seen it right here. I have the privilege of knowing a lot of these presenters, because as a writer and as a screenwriter, I've met with many of them before, but now you get to see sort of like the heart behind some of your heroes in terms of how they feel, how they advocate. And thank you all so much. We are so close to $20,000. We're at like 18,521. If I refresh it, okay, 546. It's creeping. I think we're gonna tap out at like right under 20,000. But if you can just maybe scrape up those last pennies, get someone on the phone who hasn't given, and like send them the link real quick before we wrap up, it would be great if we could hit that $20,000 mark, because we only have one more presenter left. And this was one of the original names that Joe Hill said that first time. I'm in, Dad's in, Mike Flanagan is in, and Scott Derrickson is in. And so thank you for joining us, Scott Derrickson. He's an acclaimed filmmaker, well known for his work in the horror genre, such as the direction of Dreamkill, the Dreamkill segment of VHS 85, which just won a Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Streaming Premiere, but also The Black Phone, many, many other works. Welcome, Scott, and thank you for being here.
Very good to be here. Thank you. I'm the swan song. We have to get to 20,000. I think we should do this like the old Jerry Lewis telethons, and I just stay on until we get to 20,000. I'll be here at like 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, still hanging in, waiting for the last bit of money. I'm not going to do that. I don't have anything really prepared, but I do have strong feelings about this election, and happy to be here, support Joe, especially a person I really love, and this amazing collection of horror people. And it is a great community to be a part of. The horror community is a wonderful group of people, very supportive of each other. I'm supposed to talk a little bit, I guess, about what I'm doing. I'm in Toronto right now. I'm 3 weeks from yesterday. I will begin to shoot The Black Phone 2. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm preparing that shoot. Today it was announced that my latest film, The Gorge, with Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, Sigourney Weaver, that's going to premiere in 2025. I know the date, but I can't tell it. I'm not sure why they're not releasing it, but they're not. Not my business, I guess, not my department. So we're here to talk about this election, scare up the vote. I really have two things to say. One is about, I think the primary reason to vote in this election is because of the danger of Donald Trump becoming president. And I've spoken about this very frankly in my Twitter feed. I don't mince words about my opinion about this person. I do think that anybody who's listening who has any kind of question about whether or not this person could be a good leader for this country, I think there's too many reasons why his election would be disastrous. He doesn't accept election results. He was, at the very least, complicit in the attempt to overthrow the government on January 6th, a treasonous act. He's lies incessantly about everything. I think he's changed the fabric of American culture and how we think about the truth and speak about the truth and care about the truth. I think he's really contaminated our desire and interest in vetting what is actually true, which is something that's recoverable to some degree. but not with him in office and not with the country that he will leave in his wake if he becomes president. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, I really believe in this person. She was always my favorite person from Congress to become president. I was always a supporter of her. She was my #1 choice to become president. I think she will be an incredible leader. She's steady. She's calm. She's a defender of healthcare. She wants to unify the country. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is probably the first president, I don't know, since Andrew Jackson that has no interest in unifying the country. It doesn't want to, and I think that alone is un-American. And I think that I'm sure people have spoken about the Supreme Court justices. I won't say anything about that. It's pretty obvious what Trump would leave and what Kamala Harris, if she had the opportunity to elect Supreme Court justices, would do to the court. But I'm going to finish on a note. I don't know who else has spoken about this. I haven't watched this program tonight, but I asked myself earlier, what is? I wanted to speak about an issue or issues, and I settled on one. I want to speak for a second about gun control, and I want to finish with gun control because this is an issue that I feel strongly about. My mother and brother and sister all live in Aurora, Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. The Black Phone is set in Colorado. I grew up on the north side, the Federal Heights, Shaw Heights area. The lies that have been told by Donald Trump in the last week, 2 weeks about Aurora, Colorado are pretty insidious and just the most horrendous kind of racist lies. Aurora is a beautiful place in a lot of ways, but of course it's probably most famous for the Aurora Theater shooting, something that I have very deep feelings about. I was very deeply affected by that event. I used to see movies at the Century 16 where that shooting took place. In fact, the last movie that I saw with my father before he died 21 years ago now was in the actual theater, Theater 9, where the Aurora shooting happened. I saw the two towers with him there. And so when I heard about the shooting, I was deeply affected by it. I ended up, I'm not going to explain why I became so connected to the events of that theater, but I've spoken to members of the family of that shooting. I've spoken to a U.S. senator who lost his son in that shooting. And I want to stop at this point and make one thing really clear. I'm a gun owner. You grow up in Colorado, you're probably a gun owner. I own 2 shotguns. I own 2 Smith & Wesson 357 Magnums. I believe in home protection, but something has to be done to protect our children. Simple as that. What's happening in the country and what has continued to grow is the death rate of children and teenagers from firearms. According to Johns Hopkins, the most reliable source of public health statistics in the whole country, firearms remain the leading cause of death for children and teens. For the past 3 years, firearms have killed more children and teens ages 1 to 17 than any other cause, including car crashes and cancer. Don't we love our children? Do we love our kids? Do we care about our children? We're the only country who has this kind of insane problem. The mortality rate of children as a result of firearms is about 6 out of every 100,000. The number 2 country is the country I'm in right now, Canada, which is 0.6. We're 100 times, we have a death rate 100 times higher than the number 2 country when it comes to firearms. And something has to be done. And people on the right will tell you, well, you want to take our guns away. You don't have any respect for the Second Amendment. That's not true. I do. As a gun owner, I care very deeply about my right to bear arms, but the gun restrictions already exist. It's illegal to own an automatic weapon. No one can do that. You can't have a fully automatic a fully automatic machine gun in your home. That's a felony. You cannot own that. That's illegal. You cannot own a sawed-off shotgun. You can't own a short barrel rifle. Gun restriction is a reality, and you don't hear people drawing a line at those weapons. So why is it that we're permitting what have come to be known as assault rifles, AR-15 style assault weapons? weapons of war. They're simply designed to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. There's no reason for that weapon to exist, to be owned by citizens of the United States. It's not the most practical weapon in when it comes to home protection or defense. There's no reason to not restrict it. But more importantly, what are we going to do for our children to protect children from dying at the hands of firearms? It's the number one cause of death. And people will say on the right repeatedly that that this is a non-issue because even if we ban those style weapons, it's not going to stop the mass shootings that are occurring. And that's false. In 1994, the Clinton administration banned AR-15s, banned assault rifles. And there's debate about that term, but what we call assault rifles, semi-automatic rifles. When the ban on those weapons occurred, the mortality rate of the number of massacres that were occurring dropped 37%. And when that was flipped again, and it was the ban was gotten rid of and no longer in place, the rate of massacres rose by 183%. So there is absolutely evidence that we can do something about the increasing number of mass shootings, particularly school shootings, through gun restriction. And I think that this is an issue that, as a person who lived in Colorado, knew people who've been affected by that particular shooting, a theater shooting, a place that's a sanctuary, a church for those of us who love cinema, and not far from Columbine, a place that I was familiar with, playing sports and stuff in high school. I think that this is an issue that really matters, and it hasn't been spoken about a lot, but this is one of the reasons I'm a big Kamala Harris supporter. It's one of the reasons I vote Democratic. And I just wanted to finish on that note. I don't know if anybody else addressed this issue, but it's an issue that I care about. And as somebody who deals shamelessly in violence in the art that I do, as like most horror filmmakers, like most horror authors, we can be very brutal when we're dealing with art and horror, the horrors of the world, taking the horrible seriously, sometimes comedically, but taking it on, reckoning with it. This is something I believe very strongly in, that the purpose of what we all do, we don't add more horror to the world. We're trying to reckon with the horror in the world. And that is where horror art has its value. But the real horrors are things like what happened in the Aurora Theater shooting. The people who lost their sons and daughters, wives, husbands, children, mothers, fathers. That's horror. That's the real horror. And one of the ways that we can reckon with that is by putting a limitation on these kind of mass shootings. And it's one of the reasons to vote for Kamala Harris. It's one of the reasons to give money, to support causes like this one, and to lose this stranglehold that the NRA and the right have had over their insistence on defining the Second Amendment in an improper way and not caring about the children, these kids who go to school in fear and who are getting slaughtered at the hands of these weapons. So there's my little stump speech about one of the great reasons to vote for Kamala Harris. I think that's all I have to say. I'm going to bow out now. It was great to be a part of this event, and thank you for having me. I hope we got up to 20,000. I don't know, but I think I'm done. So I'm gonna peace out here, if that's all right.
Yes, thank you so much, Scott. We did. We got to $20,637.53.
Coffee is for closers.
Woo! That's right. And this link will continue to be live, so it will outlive this event, and you can share it among friends and family and horror fans who couldn't make it tonight. I just wanted to bring on really quickly my co-CEO of Dark Dream Productions. We started our company just last year. This is our biggest production. And wanted to bring him on. He's also my co-host on Life Writing, Write for Your Life. Thank you so much. He just wanted to say a quick hello. Bring up the committee. I want to bring up this great committee that helped get this off the ground. And behind the scenes, thank you so much to our tech team for making this an incredible event. Rob Olson and Greg Green back there. And you have no idea what was going on in the green room with the tech checks trying to get Stephen King on the screen with Joe Hill. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. We're just saying goodnight, I guess. I just want to say thank you, Tananarive. You deserve all the flowers for putting this whole thing together, and we couldn't have a better leader on this.
Absolutely. I couldn't have a better team on this.
And everybody vote. Go to vote.org to make sure you're registered. It's not too late to register in a lot of states. On election day, if you're in line, stay in line. They can't get rid of you. There you go.
Absolutely. And thanks, everybody. You know what? Now I have to go back to paying attention to the news and the polls and the headlines because I won't be working on this 24/7. And it is scary out there. But just remember that we do carry our hope with us, and we will just do what we can do. Like Nat Cassidy said in his great video on our YouTube page, check out all the great videos. He did such a great video. We want to wake up on the day after the election knowing we did everything we could do, and tonight we did so much. We raised more than $20,000 for the campaign. I'm very excited about that, and let's go out and win this thing. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yes.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tananarive. Thank you to the committee.
Thanks for your leadership, Tananarive.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thanks everybody for donating.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you all for listening. And thanks to all the great participants who came out.